Am I doing your homework? Is that why we're here?
You gotta go with vibrant and exciting.
Westerns, let's go. All right.
The most that we have to go on here is what character classes they're coming with.
There's also things with ghost stories and things like that in Westerns.
That there's your deputy.
Yeah.
That's a sheriff.
I'm 2 inches taller than Wolverine.
Multi-class eventually into artificer. Oh, we're full circle, baby.
Yeah, where possible, if you can get your mechanics to agree with your story, to agree with your world, you're cooking with gas. You know what I mean?
And then just have it be very reactive to how that player wants to play the character.
And you can flavor it by, again, sort of coming back to your core themes and ideas that of your selected genre. Crisis has struck. You've established your D&D party. You've made some promises about the world they're going to encounter. Lo and behold, you actually have a copy of the Minds of Phandelver on you, and you figure, I'm going to run this module to get them through it. But nonetheless, you have still made a couple of promises about an exciting and engaging world to your party. They've all built their characters. They're gearing up to go, but you've done no preparation whatsoever. Let's work that out. I'm James. This is the Worldcraft Club podcast, a show for writers, storytellers, DMs, all those folks who want to create rich, immersive worlds for their audience to get lost in time and time again. I have John with me. What's up, John?
Am I doing your homework? Is this happening? Is this what you said you needed me on? Is that why we're here, James?
I do not have time to prepare, John. I don't have time to get into this.
Right, you have time to sit down and record with me, but not to prep the game that you're... Okay, you know what? Fine. All right, so your problem is you have 4 players.
I do.
And you don't have a world. Despite promising them a world.
I do not have a world despite promising them a world.
How into the world building are they? Because they could not be. But, like, if they're going to be into it, then, like...
Yeah, so what we've got is your players have at least gotten to a point where they've written out character sheets. They're excited.
Okay.
And they're kind of, like, engaged.
You keep saying and it sounds like you're my.
So... what we've got so far is I canvassed the Worldcraft Club server, which I had to go through, like... an ungodly amount of text about guns in D&D before I got here. The most recent discussion, everybody kept throwing grenades.
Have you seen that video by Jenny D?
Jenny D does this great video on guns in D&D.
Which is actually really good, by the way. But
no, it's really quality. But so here's what we got. Here's the party. I canvassed the server, and you have in your party a half-elf warlock, which is Steph's submission.
Half-elf warlock,
right? We have a Dragonborn, specifically Silver, Barbarian, submitted by Bradley. We've got a Gnome Cleric from producer Dave.
All right.
He's
Thanks for that.
He's one of those in real life. So then,
fair enough.
5'6" is average.
I was wondering what the red hat was for, but it's.
I'm 2 inches taller than Wolverine.
All right. He's stocky. So last is a Protector. Is it ASMR? I actually don't even. This is my D&D ignorance is showing.
ASMR is fine.
ASMR?
Yeah.
And then Paladin. ASMR Paladin.
ASMR Paladin.
Protector
Okay.
ASMR
Yeah.
Paladin. So you've got your
right.
party established. What? That was Shrado. Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, that was Shrado. Shrado.
It was Shrado. Thank you, Shrado.
Difficult bugger. So we've got all 4 of these characters in here. Again, half-elf warlock, dragonborn barbarian, a gnome cleric, and a protector ASMR paladin. And these are your 4 people that you're about to take through on an adventure. You've got the module Minds of Phandelver. I know that your preference generally is to sort of, at times, is to take a module and then sort of adapt it and create a setting on the fly. They've all kind of expressed like varying levels of interest, but the most that we have to go on here is what character classes they're coming with. Paladin, barbarian, cleric.
Okay.
And warlock.
All right, cool.
What we got?
Cool. So, and then if we're creating a scenario on the fly, do we want to stick to like Forgotten Realms territory, or do we want to spin on this to make it like vibrant and exciting?
You got to go with vibrant and exciting.
Westerns, let's go. All right,
like
so
straight up,
this is
we're having Western.
All right, so this is my specialty.
Yes.
So, all right, so we're gonna run a surprise Western setting. First, we need to think about not a surprise.
Like, yes, it's happening. It's happening.
This isn't, for those of you who know me, this is not a surprise at all. All right, so here's the deal, right? When we're thinking about world building, when we're thinking about player-focused world building, we
Yeah.
need to think about what's going to be fun for them. And so, new, vibrant, exciting setting. Sure, it's let's do a twist on something that we know. So,
Yeah.
5e, Minds of Phandelver, one of the most popular short adventures that you have for 5th edition,
Yeah, we'll
as
throw,
well
we'll
as
throw a link in the description as well, so y'all can find it. It's a really good one to run.
yeah,
if you start
absolutely,
to-
one of
yeah.
the best actually.
Yeah.
But it is like, 5e is super adaptable to different settings just via reskinning. So we're going to basically, I refuse to acknowledge what you're saying. I'm not playing that clunky mess. I said it. No one will play with you because there's no players. That's the real reason. You can't convince me.
Stop.
You can't convince anybody. That's the
get so
problem.
mean?
Right now. I'm not being mean. I'm being realistic.
Well, just play
James.
GURPS. All right, carry on.
So, we're not playing GURPS
This is
because
great
we're playing.
content for the server. I don't know if anybody else is going to be. Yeah,
We're
sorry, carry
playing a good system. Well, we're playing a better system. To Cyberpunk. So all right, now we're trying to do 5e. We're doing gonna do Forgotten Realms, but a little bit of a twist. We'll do a Western setting. So when I say reskinning, that means that we're going to make things fit into something that sounds exciting. Mechanically, it won't be different. But I'm just going to say, hey, ranged weapons. You know that heavy crossbow? Well, how about a lever action rifle? Hey, you know that hand crossbow? Yeah, that's a little blippy, flippy blippy. And then that's called a revolver, kids. And,
Who talks like that?
I don't know.
You just mentioned a children's entertainer in place of
Right.
hardware. Sorry, carry on.
So we'll keep longbows and short bows
Yeah,
as
yeah,
longbows
yeah.
and short bows. And then we have short crossbows. That could still be something like, what about a shotgun, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't necessarily have to make sense rules wise, but just from the
flavoring and aesthetic.
flavoring and aesthetic,
Yeah,
we're going to go with the Western because that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So are there any other changes in this scenario that we should be thinking of? Well, Westerns aren't just about guns. They're also about 10-gallon hats. So clearly, everyone has to be wearing the 10-gallon hats. There's also the attire and the flavorings that you're going for. So the wagons are a little bit more Western-like.
Yeah, they're like covered wagons, right? They're going out west.
Maybe your environment is slightly more arid than it is
dustier.
in like the green fields, which is normally like a temperate rainforest kind of, and Greenfield South would be more fields and things like that. So we're going to make it a little bit more like arid than usual. So a little bit more desert here and there, a little bit more dust bowl aesthetic.
So you might kind of use some of those keywords in like your opening scene.
Right.
You have a little bit of clippity clop going on there. You're driving along the dusty plains. In
Exactly.
your covered wagon. Yeah.
100%.
okay.
So your wording is going to be really important in that. And if we've only got like, an hour to prep for this, you would want to spend 10 minutes writing a few of these keywords and then writing an intro, like 3 words of, hey, where are you? What does the environment look like? And why you all are here.
Yeah.
And so you are all gathered here at the saloon in the arid green fields or outside of the ye old town
The Ember
of
Fields.
right.
Yeah.
And so you want to build it up that way because immediately you're going to put your players into that setting and situation.
Yeah.
You also can lean on the tropes of like, hey, someone is walking and you hear the stirrups clinking as they're walking through.
Yeah,
right.
and the sort of length of that approach as well, right? There's a menace to it, like that you wouldn't see elsewhere. There's like that build up, Yeah, I like that.
If you're not familiar with the tropes of a Western or whatever setting that you're running specifically, do a few minute lookup and see if there's like classic tropes that you can look up on and just throw them into your intro. And other players will be again to pick up on some of the themes and the ideas within those tropes.
Yeah.
But as we get into that, so we've established that, okay, so we're running a Western. Everything looks a little bit different
Your bard's got a
because
harmonica.
We're reskinning things to be themed that way.
Yeah.
I've done it before where I've thrown that at the players at the beginning of the setting, and there was a little bit of like, oh boy, here we go. But it also works well if you can get the buy-in.
Well, yeah. Because here's the deal: you've got a paladin. That there's your deputy.
Yeah.
That's a sheriff,
Well,
right?
I
Like
mean,
that is rad.
Well, here's the thing. We've got
skin for a sheriff.
we've got the do we know if the ASMR is fallen or is it what kind of ASMR do we have? Do we know?
All I got is Protector ASMR. So
Protector
I thought
ASMR.
Protector was the
Okay,
paladin.
so Protector ASMR, I believe, is like the good paladin. There's like a neutral or good ASMR. There's like the neutral ASMR that's not fallen, but they're also a little bit more unrestricted on the resources they use.
little chaotic in there.
A
Good.
little bit morally ambiguous.
I like a little spice in my tea. Yeah.
And then you have like the fallen ASMR, which is just like, skeleton wings and stuff.
The
which is
fun
cool.
ones.
Right. Sheriff from Hell. But we won't do Sheriff from Hell.
That's kind of rad though.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sheriff,
carry on.
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like, yeah, Paladin, Sheriff, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then it's like, okay, well, like they're going to have to use a melee weapon because a lot of their abilities are melee weapons and stuff. So how can you still use that?
Yeah.
Well,
because they got to retain this kind of soul of the character, but
Right.
reskin in a way that's respectful to what they're trying to create, but
Right.
will also just be wicked fun in a Western.
right. Absolutely. One thing that you could do is katana,
Yeah. Okay.
which I mean is like,
kinda rad.
wait,
Well,
why? But
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I'm getting excited. Go.
So for those of you that don't know, Westerns are based off of samurai movies from Japan, and
Yeah,
Americans
like the
were
Lone
like,
Protector and like
right. I mean, the Seven Samurai is the Magnificent Seven. It was just before
Yeah,
Magnificent
literally,
Seven.
it's like one to one essentially. Like this isn't just one was rooted in the other. It's like there's a lot of close associations.
Right. One is wearing samurai armor and has a sword. The other has, a 10-gallon hat and a gun. And that's basically it. That's the
Both
difference.
Are rad.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could do something like that and play
Yeah.
on those tropes. You could also just say, like, hey, it's a sword. It's okay. That makes sense. But
Cavalryman's cutlass.
Oh,
I like that. Cavalryman's
yeah.
cutlass.
I'm sorry, this is too cool of a concept for the producer to say.
Yeah, no, I'm in.
Get in here. Scoot in here.
Scooch on
So-
over.
All right, cool. So, yeah, Cavalryman's cutlass. Oh, yeah, he's coming in. All right, let's go.
Yeah. No, that's gonna knock over cables.
Oh, no.
Wait, no, I can't get in there. Yeah,
All right, so, yeah, Cavalryman's cutlass. I love that. Give him a horse.
yeah.
Just give him a
Sweet.
horse.
We're
right?
done. Yeah.
And boom, you've got that. So, like, Sheriff from Heaven, why?
Yeah.
Why from, the astral planes? Why from the mounds? Oh, man, I'm forgetting the name of it. But, like, basically the plane of existence that basically the ASMR would come from.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
why are you coming here? Is it that you're looking for a
Justice.
particular... Are you looking for a particular villain? Maybe you are looking for a particular villain, but you don't know much information. And so you have to investigate the area because you were just... thrown back onto the material plane and said, okay, find someone bad and apprehend them. Cool. You as the DM can work out the details later, but for now, that's a cool plot hook. So we'll work on that.
Yeah.
All right. So we got our paladin out of the way.
Yeah.
What else we got? Again, we've got the half-elf
Yeah,
warlock.
we got the half elf warlock. I think will be an interesting one because we're creating a setting that, depending on like if you're looking at Weird West, you kind of get the sort of occultic magic element that can
okay.
get thrown in there.
I like
which
that. I
I
like
think
that.
is interesting to
Yeah,
do with the warlock.
it doesn't necessarily have to be all of the setting, but you can definitely throw in elements of that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And so it depends on like what kind of thing that you want to run.
And it's trying to flavor it in that. I mean, like I've
Absolutely.
heard people say as well, like on the server, we were actually discussing this with introduction of guns into D&D. So this fits really well, but it's kind of like the functional difference between a gun and like an Eldritch blast, right?
Right. Okay. So I got it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So there's a lot of theming in westerns that deal with the dead, right?
Yeah.
Like you have The Question of the Dead, and like different movies that deal a lot with like when does someone die, right? Is it
Yeah.
because they don't have honor, or that because they were bested by somebody still, or things like that. So
Life
a warlock.
is a really
Yeah.
big thematic element of the
Absolutely.
West.
There's also things with ghost stories and things like that in westerns where there's sometimes the Weird West creepiness that kind of creeps in there.
Yeah.
So one thing is you could have a patron that is essentially a death domain.
Yeah.
And you could have something like Shar. Shar is going to be a goddess of secrets and knowledge and death. And so
That's a good fit.
at night, you know, you do have Shadowheart, excuse me, your half-elf warlock, who is basically going into a scenario with very little knowledge of their backstory. Again, buying you time for planning a later session.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, so this is all slapped together, so we're giving you the basic aesthetics to run with.
Right.
Yeah.
But your knowledge is that you are finding some information and extinguishing it.
Yeah.
What is that? Maybe you're not sure and you have to pick that up. One thing is if you do, and I will give this information, if you have read through the entire adventure, you know that at the end of Lost Mines of Phandelver, inside of that lost mine is an old magic factory. And so all these different items and things were being created. So maybe it's Char's idea to either extinguish it or to find it again because it's been kept a secret so that it can be utilized for her forces in the Forgotten Realms. One of the two work, right? But maybe you don't know that because Goddess of Secrets. But that's a way to integrate the kind of Weird West, the mechanics of death, and the ghost story kind of aesthetic with Warlock.
Yeah.
And half-elf Shadowheart and Char, you know, so it works.
Yeah. No, I like
That's
that.
one way that we could run that too.
And this is interesting because this incorporates something that I think is really valuable, which is character objectives and arcs. Because a lot of times DMs come at it from the perspective of I'm telling the story and the players are participating in that story. But if the players have ownership of their story and they know directionally where they're looking to go and they're in agreement with that, it's a really powerful way to get the sort of engagement that a lot of D&D DMs they dream of,
right,
is getting folks focused on that. So like, I think that could be incredibly useful, giving them that sort of mission in there. And I like the way you've been including that in each of them,
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. What are we going to do with our Dragonborn Barbarian?
Yeah. Okay.
Barbarian.
So I was trying to think of, Dragonborn Barbarian and how that could work. And so we want to be careful because, there's certain things about Westerns that can be a little bit touchy in here and there, but we have themes of outsiders and when people are included or when they're not, and how people are treated. Django is a great example of, a black man who eventually escapes slavery and also becomes a renowned gunfighter and fighter. And awesome movie by Quentin Tarantino. But we could kind of think about some of those elements of not doing a one-on-one, but thinking about, okay, Dragonborn, thematically in our setting, this is after the Tyranny of Dragons, so there could be a little bit of apprehension, but what is the Dragonborn Barbarian doing in this setting, right? It can be something of just finding something that belongs to his family, finding, a place in his clan. Maybe he is mad.
Yeah.
And as barbarians tend to be. Or maybe there's something else that we want to discover with the character or character development. Yeah. Right.
I always find found family is a really good trope with this kind
Absolutely.
of stuff too. But that's just one I really, it's Dave who put me onto that one. He every character I've had that had been in a game with his, he's got, I like the found family.
There's a ton of theming with found family and finding your place within Westerns. And sometimes that's an arc that goes from either a middle spot of uncertainty to bad, like if you're thinking about the movie Unforgiven, or if you're thinking about a place that goes from uncertainty to someplace good, like City Slickers. I said it, and there's different ways that you could throw that in. But I think playing with the idea of, hey, Dragonborn Barbarian, not your everyday character. And how are your interactions going to be? How is that character going to surprise people? Is it via, kindness? Is it via violence? Is it via a strong code of honor despite being, a raging barbarian? Is it via the raging barbarian just being himself? There's something that you can play with that. And I think that you can, without it being, I'll just say, weird, and having that careful consideration of the concepts here, you can have everybody initially just being I don't know what this guy's gonna do, as a starting point, and then just have it be very reactive to how that player wants to play the character. And that being a point of contention. Because if the barbarian is oh, hey, I want all of your mugs of beer, chug, throws them on the ground, that's going to be a point of contention that you bring to the entire party. And then the party can have the interaction with that character of hey, you think about not throwing the glassware on the ground? That'd be great sometimes. And that's something that you can do with that character that would be really cool in a Western vibe. That is also like carefully considering some of those maybe more touchy themes in Westerns.
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
something that
Handling it with
is
some grace
approachable.
and sensitivity.
It's
yeah.
approachable to the table in a way that's also really authentic and neat.
Yeah,
and thinking about
because
this
I
stuff.
think a lot of folks have an experience as well, being kind of an outsider and kind of having to kind of find your way into a place and find your home there. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So last we got the gnome cleric, and I've got some ideas to throw at you.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
a really common theme in Westerns is this, and again, like note the way that what we're essentially doing is we're taking the big ideas in Western,
Right.
and we're sort of just pasting them on here, right? And I
Right.
think when you say it this sort of magnitude and depth, it's very easy to come up with lots of ideas very quickly because we're kind of like, hey, what are Westerns talking about? And we're kind of like working our way through that. With the gnome cleric, I'm imagining a forge cleric. And
Okay.
I'm kind of thinking like a real strong theme through these is the town blacksmith. But you also have the onset of sort of, if you like, civilization kind of coming to the untamed West sort of mentality.
Embrace modernity, reject tradition.
Yeah, sort of thing. And like I throw that in there because like I think that whole thing of the onset of technology, growth, change,
Absolutely.
that sort of thing coming to it. There's sort of this sense of there's a purity to the natural world that's also kind of dangerous at times because there's risk, but then you kind of have the safety and comfort of sort of the modern age.
Okay. So I really like that you're doing.
Uncomfortably trying to wedge in.
I really liked that you're doing your own homework now. That's good. So let me throw something else at you too.
Yeah.
Right. So I love that idea. That's perfect for handling those concepts and things, especially going into the magic dungeon, right, where you potentially have this new or old magic forge that could potentially be restarted for a more like traditional way to progress into the future, or maybe you destroy it because embrace modernity, reject tradition.
Yeah.
What if that character you also threw in the idea to that player before they started?
We're all looking at
Embrace multi-class eventually into artificer. Oh, we're full circle, baby.
Right? Yeah, we did it. You're welcome, Ginny D. We got your back.
Because artificer. I mean, we're classically thinking about guns, but forge cleric is also going into the artificer tropes of building new technology and tinkering with things. That's not a stereotype for gnomes, but I think that you should have the literal character dynamic interplaying with itself. And that
internally.
team.
Artificer representing the modern and the new and the different, and the forge representing the embracing of tradition. And sort of a more natural, earthy.
Right. And even if it's not optimal, right? Because I can think of, a couple of different ways that we don't have time for it of how it's not optimal. But it's something that you as a character mechanic have to wrestle with the plethora of things that you can do now that's not super optimal, but how are you going to combine things or reject some things and embrace others to move forward with your character? I know.
And Westerns are actually also just an interesting way to go. Like
you can just have priests.
Literal clergy.
Yeah.
And
That's
the
true.
idea of like trying to bring like an idealistic cleric trying to bring like moral certainty to the morally gray world of like the pioneer, like
and
frontier.
wrestling with that sense of moral certainty at a time when that challenge is actually really good. And I like the way again you focused on character arcs, and one thing that's interesting is the way that the mechanics interplay with the character's own journey, because like where possible, if you can get your mechanics to agree with your story, to agree with your world, you're cooking with gas. You know what I mean? And like so far what we've effectively done is we've looked at some terms that we can use to sort of reskin a bit of this portion of Faerun, talking a little bit about how this was the Green Plains. We're talking about making it a little more dusty, a little more arid, following those themes. We've talked about some of the major themes in Westerns and how you can then sort of paste them onto the different characters, and each character now has a journey that they can undergo. And like with all of this kind of comes with the proviso, like we're kind of assuming that you've got mature players who are willing to sort of like work with you a little bit back and forth, and they will have recommendations. Like they will be like, oh, that's interesting, but I'm really more wanting to do this. And you can flavor it by, again, sort of coming back to your core themes and ideas that of your selected genre, and then working off of those. Make it dusty, make it isolated. Think about those conflicts that exist within a setting. I think a lot of settings are essentially big bags of unresolved conflicts.
Absolutely.
Like, it's kind of like what it is. So pick a conflict.
Absolutely.
And throw that into a character.
And like, clearly I know Westerns, but like, what if it was like, okay, I've watched a lot of, I think it's isekai anime, where like, people jump in from like a modern day into like a fantasy
vending
setting.
machines.
Right. And it's like, okay, what if that is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
But so what if your characters are vending machines? But what if it's like,
vending machines.
if that's what you know, like, okay, so how are you going to make that happen? Well, essentially you have the Forgotten Realms, and that's fine. But all you then have to say is, hey, all of a sudden you have, person name, person name, person name, person name in these characters. And you can have the trope of like, you all, while you're at the table, are yourselves in the pieces of paper that you have here, right? And so then you can, everything else then stays the same, but you can focus on that as a theme and as a quirk to the setting. If you're doing something else like Attack on Titan, of course, like being in that world, and it's like, okay, are you dealing with like small titans? Or are you dealing with like external group of humans? Like,
either way, you're getting eaten.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different ways where it's like, use what you know to reskin what you can if you're in like a time crunch, so that you can make like a unique, fun setting. Just frankly, if you're using what you know, it's trying to be fun.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's as good a spot to end as any. I think we've kind of got it squared away. We've Western skinned Minds of Phandelver, given a nice overview with like a good direction for each character. And because I think you're including the characters like very explicitly in the goal and sort of tying them into the theme, I think you have a world where you're going to get a lot of player engagement.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Worldcraft Club podcast. This has been an absolute blast. I think we've got our core themes and key ideas. We've gone through them a few times. I hope you really enjoyed this one as much as I enjoyed having this conversation and getting to talk about GURPS again, no matter how much John tried to stop me.
My God.
So I'm James, your host, and I'm joined today by John and producer Dave, and special thanks to editor AJ. Hope you can join us again sometime soon. Bye. John plays D&D. I run a podcast. We're going to figure out how communism works right now.